In the quiet, tree-lined streets of Oakwood Falls, where front doors were often left unlocked and neighbors waved from their porches, the most dangerous thing was supposed to be the occasional overcooked burger at a backyard barbecue. At the heart of this community was 58-year-old Robert "Rob" Henderson, the proud owner of Henderson's Jewelers, a family business his grandfather had started in 1924. Rob wasn't just a businessman. He was a local fixture. He had a booming laugh that could be heard across the town square, a weakness for bad puns, and a genuine interest in the lives of his customers. He knew which young man was shopping for an engagement ring, which couple was celebrating a milestone anniversary, and he took immense pride in the fact that his store held the dreams and milestones of his neighbors glittering under the soft LED lights of his display cases. His most trusted employee was a man named Leo Jarvis, a former high school football star whose glory days were 2 decades behind him. Leo was affable, reliable, and had worked for Rob for 15 years. He was the guy who remembered everyone's name, who helped carry heavy purchases to cars for elderly customers, and who Rob considered not just an employee, but a friend. He was the only other person who knew the intricate schedule for the store's state-of-the-art alarm system and the combination to the massive, floor-standing Mosler safe where the high-value inventory was kept each night. The day it happened was a Tuesday, a day typically so slow that Rob would use the time to catch up on paperwork. October 26th. The air was crisp, the sky a hard, clear blue. At 4:45 p.m., just 15 minutes before closing, 2 men in bulky jackets, their features obscured by grotesque rubber masks, one a ghoulish clown, the other a twisted devil, burst through the front door. The bell above the frame jingled a cheerful, horrifying contrast to the scene that unfolded. One of them, the clown, immediately raised a pistol, its metal a dull, cold gray. "Everybody on the ground, now!" The voice was a guttural snarl, distorted by panic or perhaps by design. The only people inside were Rob, Leo, and a single elderly customer named Mrs. Gable, who froze in sheer terror, her hand fluttering to her throat. What happened next was a blur of terrifying efficiency. The devil, silent and swift, vaulted over the main display case and shoved a duffel bag into Leo's chest. "Fill it, now. No trackers, no dies, or I put a hole in the old lady." Leo's hands trembled as he fumbled with the keys, his face a mask of pure fear. He began emptying trays of diamond rings, gold bracelets, and pearl necklaces into the bag. Rob, from his position on the floor, tried to stay calm. "Just do what they say, Leo. It's all insured." His eyes, however, were fixed on the clown's hands. The way he held the gun wasn't quite right. It was both nervous and practiced, a strange contradiction. The real horror began when the devil pointed towards the Mosler safe in the back office. "That one. Open it." Rob's blood ran cold. The safe contained the estate pieces, the one-of-a-kind items worth more than the entire front-of-store inventory combined. More importantly, its combination was a secret shared only between him and Leo. I can't remember," Leo stammered, his voice cracking. "Under pressure? My mind goes blank." The clown stepped toward Mrs. Gable, pressing the barrel of his gun against her temple. She let out a small, choked whimper. "Remember now?" the clown growled. It was Rob who broke. "Stop. I'll do it. Leave her alone." With shaking hands and under the watchful eyes of the 2 masked men, Rob dialed the combination. The heavy door swung open, revealing velvet boxes holding a fortune in jewels. The devil stuffed them into the bag. The entire robbery, from the jingling bell to their exit, took 3 minutes and 47 seconds. They left behind a terrified elderly woman, a traumatized jeweler, and a store emptied of over $750,000 in merchandise. They also left behind a single critical piece of evidence. As the devil vaulted back over the counter, his jacket snagged on a decorative latch, tearing a small piece of fabric that fluttered, unseen by him, to the floor. The investigation was led by Detective Maria Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran with a reputation for meticulous, dogged work. The Oakwood Falls PD was out of its depth. This was the biggest crime in the town in over 40 years. The initial evidence was slim. The security footage was useless for identification. The masks were generic, purchased for cash at a costume shop 40 miles away, and the guns, of course, were never found. The witness statements were consistent but unhelpful. Mrs. Gable was too frightened to recall any details. Rob was deeply shaken, replaying the event over and over in his mind, haunted by the feeling that something was off. Leo was the most visibly distressed. He took a leave of absence, telling Rodriguez he was having panic attacks, that he felt responsible for not being able to remember the safe combination under duress. "I just froze," he told her, his eyes red-rimmed. "I let Rob down. I let everyone down." Rodriguez offered him a card for a department-vetted therapist. She found his distress performative. It was a gut feeling, nothing more. The break came from two directions at once. The first was the torn piece of fabric from the devil's jacket. Forensics identified it as coming from a specific brand of high-end outdoor wear, a jacket marketed to hunters for its silence and durability. It was an expensive model, not the kind of thing a common thug would typically wear. The second and more critical break came from a traffic camera a mile from the jewelry store. It had captured a dark blue sedan driving away from the general area at a high rate of speed just minutes after the robbery. The plate was muddy, but not entirely illegible. After weeks of digital enhancement, they got a partial. It was enough to narrow it down to a list of vehicles, and one name stood out: David Miller, Leo Jarvis's cousin. Miller had a sheet, minor drug possession, a bar fight, but nothing on this scale. When Rodriguez brought him in for questioning, he was cocky, arrogant. He had an alibi provided by his girlfriend that placed him at home watching a football game. But under pressure, his confidence began to crack. Rodriguez played a hunch. She showed him a still from the traffic camera. "We have you leaving the scene, David. Your cousin can't save you now." Miller's face went pale. "Leo said you'd never make the connection." The moment the words left his mouth, the room went silent. He had just implicated the town's most reliable, most sympathetic witness. The pieces of the puzzle, once forced, began to fit together with terrifying speed. Leo Jarvis wasn't a victim, he was the architect. The distress, the panic attacks, the inability to remember the safe combination, it was all a carefully constructed act. He had orchestrated the entire robbery, hiring his cousin and another associate to play the roles of the clown and the devil. The expensive jacket fragment belonged to the other accomplice, a man named Carl Rigetti, who was quickly apprehended. Leo's motive was a slow-burning fuse of resentment. He saw himself as the heir apparent to a business he would never own, watching Rob Henderson, a man he secretly considered less savvy, reap the rewards of his family's legacy. He felt undervalued, underpaid, and overworked. The robbery was his way of cashing in, of getting what he believed he was owed, while crafting the perfect alibi, the traumatized, loyal employee. The arrest of Leo Jarvis was a scene of quiet devastation. Rodriguez found him at home, packing a suitcase. He didn't resist, he just seemed tired. As she read him his rights, he looked at her, his eyes devoid of their usual warmth. "Did you find the emerald necklace?" he asked, his voice flat. "It was always my favorite piece in the store." The sheer audacity of the question, the cold detachment, sent a chill down Rodriguez's spine. The majority of the jewels were never recovered. Leo had hidden them somewhere, a final act of control. The courtroom drama was less about guilt. The evidence from his accomplices was damning, and his financial records showed a series of secret debts and recent unexplained deposits, and more about the betrayal. Rob Henderson, looking a decade older, took the stand. He had to face the man he'd shared coffee with for 15 years, the man he'd trusted with the keys to his life's work. The prosecutor showed the security footage, this time highlighting Leo's actions. The Fumbling with the keys was now seen as a stalling tactic to ensure the front case goods were taken. The panic over the safe combination was a cruel manipulation to force Rob to open it himself, removing any suspicion from Leo. When Rob spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "I worried about him. After the robbery, I brought him meals. I told him not to blame himself." He looked directly at Leo, who stared back, his expression unreadable. "I considered you a friend." For the first time, a flicker of something, shame or perhaps just irritation, crossed Leo's face. He said nothing. The climax of the trial came during Leo's own testimony. Against the advice of his counsel, he took the stand, arrogant enough to believe he could outsmart the system one more time. He spun a tale of being coerced by his violent cousin, of being a victim himself. The prosecutor, a calm and methodical woman, let him talk. She then approached the bench with a single piece of paper. She was granted permission. "Mr. Jarvis, you claim you were terrified of your cousin, David Miller, correct?" Leo nodded, putting on a show of earnest fear. "Yes, he threatened my family." The prosecutor paused, letting the silence stretch. "Then, can you explain why, 3 days after the robbery, you sent this text message to Mr. Miller?" She held up the paper. The jury leaned forward. Leo's confidence wavered. The prosecutor read the message aloud, her voice clear and cutting in the hushed courtroom. "It says, 'Stop panicking. The old man bought it. The clown mask was a nice touch. He never suspected a thing.'" The revelation was a physical blow to the room. The nice touch was his own idea, a final, mocking insult. In that moment, the carefully constructed facade of the terrified victim crumbled to dust, revealing the cold, calculating manipulator beneath. The jury saw it. Everyone saw it. He had not only planned the robbery, he had enjoyed the performance. Leo Jarvis was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 30 years in prison. Rob Henderson eventually reopened his store, but the trust was gone. The door was now kept locked, requiring a buzzer to enter, and he worked alone. The glittering jewels were replaced, but the spark in Rob's eyes never fully returned. The town of Oakwood Falls learned a harsh lesson that day, a lesson written not in the safety of their unlocked doors, but in the betrayal of a smiling face. The most dangerous weapon in any robbery isn't always a gun. Sometimes it's the key held by a trusted friend. If you find yourself drawn into the dark psychology of crime, subscribe for more tales from the other side of the law.